Welcome. You've arrived at another episode of Shift. I'm Peter Hislop, and I'm introducing you today to Stuart Buckland, who is the producer, advisor, and patient help to the Shift program. Hi, Stuart. It's good to have you coming along.
Hi, Peter. Thanks for having me here. I guess today I'm here to ask you questions. You're the subject matter expert here, and we've talked a lot in your episodes so far about some leadership style concepts and, executive coaching. We're interested in hearing more about that. So I guess there's going to be a few dumb questions along the way. I apologize for that. Here's the first dumb question. When you explain to people what you do, how do you explain what executive coaching is?
Executive coaching comes in two forms. Firstly, when it's directed to people in middle management, it's about getting them ready for leadership in addition to their skills as managers. So middle managers have a set of targets to meet, and they have normally a team. How do you get that team to meet those targets, meet the numbers at the end of each quarter or year? You also have to get them ready to lead people, to create senses of people wanting to follow them, when sometimes they don't understand them. And so that's the quality of influence, which is a word I prefer to leadership, because I think we've beaten to death the concept of leadership to the extent that we don't really understand it anymore. It's used as a descriptor when you don't quite understand what you want from someone. You say, well, we require you to be a better leader. And everyone sort of thinks, oh, okay, that's good, until someone sits down and says, well, what does that mean? Executive coaching is when you are now talking about subject matter experts who've risen to the top of their particular area of expertise, who are now quite often running high numbers of people in teams, who may be in finance, maybe marketing, maybe a particular form of the company, or in operations, wherever, where you've got a group of subject matter experts. And there, you don't teach them or you don't coach them on information, you coach them on influence, which is what leadership's all about.
Right.
So that's kind of what it's all about.
So obviously, like you say, there's a very different approach to what you do between speaking to middle managers and the upper echelons of management. You've talked about influence there, but why do executives at that level need coaching? I mean, aren't they at the top of their game to be where they are?
And that's an excellent question. The answer is, I don't know how long ago it was, probably 30 or 40 years ago, someone thought it would be a good idea to put subject matter experts together in the one grouping, in the one team or the one silo, so that you got excellence. So you put everybody who is interested in or involved in finance into the one group. And so what happens is the person then, or a group of people, start rising to the top of that. Their only experience is in leading and guiding people who are like themselves. So if you then take a finance person who ends up in, head of the finance of a large organization and move them over to marketing, they're a fish out of water. They can actually be quite dangerous. So once they achieve the upper echelons of executive life, they have to learn to be able to make decisions and see things in terms of a broader spectrum. They have to see right across the organisation. They have to start thinking about what is good for the organisation, not just what's good for their silos.
Right.
Up until that time, all they've been doing is going to leadership meetings and fighting over resources and pointing fingers at each other. Now you're saying, okay, we need the group of 7 or 8 or 9 or whatever it might be to start thinking about what's good for the organisation, and then feeding that up to the more senior executive, who may just be the CEO.
So the higher you go, the broader the perspective you need to help people with.
And the problem with there is that, and that sounds brilliant. Okay, that's easy. The problem is the people that have risen to that top area have spent the last 25 years learning how to think like a finance person or a marketing person or an operational person. And they've dug these trenches of habitual behavior where they can't move out of.
Right.
So that if you put a finance person into marketing, they're just going to piss off the entire marketing team because their approach to things is very different. So that becomes the problem. You're asking someone at the age of maybe late 40s, early 50s to change the way they think, to change the way they deal with information, to change the way they deal with problem solving, how they deal individually with people, how they deal with groups and teams and so on.
Right.
And this has just habitually failed.
Mm.
But for some reason, we've patted ourselves on the head and said, oh, well, it's still a good system. There's nothing else. Where it starts to trip over and is forced to self-examine itself is when we've promoted women into those higher levels, because women find it much easier to deal with people unlike themselves.
Right.
Women find connections between people. They don't, I suppose, fall back onto habitual behaviour. So you can take a woman who's come right through the finance area, maybe right to the top, and it would be, and I've seen it, it's not a big leap to ask her to go across and run the marketing team for a while.
Right.
She's able to do it, even though she doesn't understand it and maybe even doesn't like it, but she's able to make connections. Men don't make those connections. They think everyone should be a finance person.
So is that, in your experience, women being more prone to being empathetic?
I don't think it's got anything to do with that. I think men spend their entire lives building hierarchies and placing themselves within the hierarchy. This is where I am. There are people who are above me. There are people below me. And sometimes I fight to go up in the hierarchy. Women don't do that. Women form themselves into groups. And the thing that keeps women moving in those groups is connections. Women will look for connections
Right.
wherever they are. How is that connected to this? How is that connected to that? And so that's why largely I think women potentially make better leaders.
Would you say that the background that male leaders come from, often potentially private school, often potentially maybe male-only schools, where there's a lot of kind of testosterone, a lot of macho-ness and all that sort
Yes.
of thing, do you think that affects that kind of connection building potentially later
Oh,
on?
yes. I think it's the way men look at. If you look at children in a primary school playground, the boys are running into fences, running into trees, trying to climb them, falling off, breaking things, all to impress the other boys. Okay, and there's always the bigger boy who's in charge of everything,
Yeah.
and then he's got his lieutenants underneath it. And so someone is always doing something wrong. Hey, Billy, why don't you see if you can run across the highway and back without being caught by any of the teachers?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
That's
We'll
fine.
stay here and watch.
Yeah, we'll stay here and watch. So we do that, and then Billy gets hit by a car, taken off in an ambulance, and all the boys just turn their backs on it. So, like it wasn't me. You look at the same playground, you see women, girls sitting around talking, ejecting people from groups, bringing them back. All they're doing constantly is creating connections and understanding. And I think that's the most important and robust vision for how they behave in the next 20, 30 years. The problem is men who can only fight against the rise of women by using their hierarchy. And all that does is just make women angry.
And that still happens a lot, as far as you can see.
Absolutely. I mean, men still, the level of harassment of women is done to control them and control them in the only way they know possible. The problem is men haven't realized that does not control women. It just irritates them. and I don't know why.
All right. Looking at some of the things that clients come to you for.
Yes.
So are they always specific things? I want help with X, or is it broadly, what can you do for me to help me be a better leader?
Sometimes it's, look, I've gone for a few promotions. I'm not getting them. How can you help me discover what it is? It's great. I'm coming up. I want to be a CEO. What do I need to learn to do to be a CEO?
Yeah.
And so after a lot of research, we're able to create a program for that. Sometimes it's, we've just had some kind of assessment, and these are the list of things people think are wrong with me. Now, all these people are, of course, wrong because I'm perfect, but how can we deal with these situations?
Right.
The ones I like are the ones where they come along and say, look, my wife says I don't listen. Now, of course, she's wrong. She doesn't understand the pressures that I'm under, um, but maybe I should start listening a little bit better.
Hmm.
And if, of course, you find that the family and the wife are right, they don't listen, the teams know that they don't listen. So it can be a plethora of different origins, but most men come to me with denial first. So they smack the denial down on the desk and say, look, all this is wrong, but how do I deal with all of these people who've got these fractured ideas about how bad I am? Because you and I both know I'm brilliant. I exaggerate a little bit, but it's the same sort of thing.
That's an interesting idea, though, that someone's come to you for help, but are denying that they need it.
One of the issues that you find with executives is they have received an enormous amount of feedback over their executive lives.
Mm.
Most of the clients that I have become senior influential executives around the age of 30, 35. So they're used to it, but they're also used to getting feedback. They're used to going to leadership conferences. They're used to going to all sorts of different conferences, and they've become highly proficient at ignoring everything they don't want to hear. They can sit through a week of being hammered about a new culture that someone wants in the organization or a new set of leadership principles. They will sit through there, and the facilitator will, at the end of the week, say, this is an extraordinary team of people. They've taken all I've asked them to take in, and I'm sure they're ready to go.
Mm.
When in fact, by 8 o'clock on Friday night, when they're back on their computers, they've forgotten everything. But they've acted their way brilliantly through it. They know how to do it.
Mm.
They know how to get people to think that. So when it suddenly hits them personally, they're out of their depth. I mean, what am I going to do with this? People are actually asking me to take this seriously.
Mm.
So, I had one client who came along to me and said, look, I've been told that there is a problem with my listening to my team. Now, Peter, this is an absurdity. My team, if you ask them, will say that I'm one of the best listeners they've ever come across. And he said, it's just, I don't understand what's happening. And I said, okay, look, before we agree to coaching contract, I want you to go home and I want you to ask your wife and any child you have over the age of 11 one question. Yes, Peter. How do you know when I've stopped listening to you? So he said, oh, okay, that's fine. So at about 8 o'clock that night, I get a phone call and there's silence at the other end of the phone. And then finally he said, Peter, I'm in trouble. And I said, what's wrong? And he said, we've got to start this coaching. So he asked his wife, how do you know when I've stopped listening to you? And she said, that's easy. As soon as I start talking about my day.
Oh, okay.
He asked the kids, and they said, that's easy, Dad. You get this funny look on your face. You start nodding your head all the wrong times and smiling. That's when we know you've gone back to work in your head.
That's what I was going to ask. It's not, it seems likely it's not a conscious decision not to listen. It's just so
It's
much,
habit.
so much going on in the head.
Well, it's also rudeness.
Right.
It's also a lack of respect. Because if you take that into your workplace, someone has thought carefully about a problem. They come to you as their senior leader and say, this is the problem. Can you help me through it?
Mm.
And halfway through them describing it, they realize he's gone somewhere else in his head. It's rude. There was another guy I had ages ago in a bank, and one of the complaints was that he didn't listen. And he would say, it's very difficult for me to listen, Peter, because I've got so much to do. And I found that what he would do would race through his area. He had something, 3 floors of people who reported into him, and he'd race through the 3 floors. And this was in the days of the, what were those phones?
The Nokias?
No, the Blackberries.
Oh, right, yeah.
That I loved so much. He used to race through on his Blackberry. And someone would say, excuse me, Graham, can I have it? Yeah, sure, I'll get back to you. Or he'd stop and listen and, yeah, Graham, it's fine. So the only way I could get him to do to really face into it was walk through there without his BlackBerry.
Right.
And
Got
after the
confiscated.
first couple of times, he just rang me. He said, "This is brilliant." He said, "These people are really interesting. Some of the problems are really interesting." I mean, duh. I'm sorry. I mean, and this was someone who was on, my eyes would cross every time I thought about his salary. This is it. I mean, it was denial.
Right. And I suppose, obviously, this doesn't cover everyone, but some people may think that being very busy and having a lot of responsibility can be used as an excuse sometimes
Of
for
course,
not treating people in a normal kind of
exactly.
personable way.
And some of these executives have absolutely no idea how hard they're making their direct reports work.
Right.
They forget how hard these people are working, how many extra hours they're doing.
Mm. Yeah.
So it really is. It's, I think, rudeness at a very high level. It's arrogance at a very high level, but it's also denial. They are moving away from the truth. I mean, you know that I've had an addiction history. So people, when I was homeless and lying in the streets, people would come up to me and say, "Are you okay? How about we take you to a hostel and get you a nice sleep and something to eat?" And I'd say, "I'm fine, thanks. Everything's fine."
Mm.
Because I was terrified of the paperwork and someone would find me and
Right.
et cetera, et cetera. But I'd say, "No, that's fine." As I was slipping into addiction, people would say, "Peter, I hate to tell you, but we think you're drinking too much." "No, I'm fine." And then I'd take one further step into stupidity and say, "Listen, my mother died of alcoholism. You don't think that I would know if I was becoming an alcoholic?" I
Mm.
mean, it's not so different to the rampant behavior of executives. They simply don't know. They don't recognize the aberrance of their behaviors.
And change seems intimidating, no matter how beneficial it might seem.
Well, change seems unnecessary because, after all, I'm a senior member of the bank. I'm earning all of this sort of money, or I'm a senior member of this mining company, or I'm a rising politician. Why should I change?
Mm. Mm. That
And
comes
so
back to
it
the
comes back.
question of why do these people feel they need coaching?
Yes.
Yeah.
And so sometimes it's really, really hard. It's also painful because they have to talk about themselves in a way that's honest rather than pre-prepared, pre-packaged.
Mm.
So they're used to the packaged person coming into a room and sitting down. I'm the CFO or I'm the CMO. That's who I am in this room full of other executives.
Yes.
If you're suddenly saying, "Well, I'm the CFO, but there's a lot wrong with me, so you're going to have to, bear with me
Mm.
for a few months while I repair some of these things. I'm going to start listening to you all, and I'm going to tell me if you think I'm not listening."
We should say this isn't all executives. That's, we love executives. That's fine.
Yeah, look, it's not all executives, about 98% of them.
How did you find yourself doing this?
Well, it's a clerical error, really. I'd been on the streets. I came back, and that's a whole process. I got some jobs, and someone along the way, I went back to do an MBA, and someone said, "Look, I think you might like coaching. See if you can do it." And I fell into it, and I loved it. But I was completely unable to sell myself.
Mm.
I couldn't sort of ring up and say, "Hi, I'm Peter Hislop. I'm a new executive coach. Can I come and talk to you about how wonderful I am?" I just couldn't do that. And I met an old friend on Wynyard platform, and he said, "Oh, well, I've just become part of an executive coaching firm. I'm on the board. How about I introduce you?" And that was brilliant because that had someone who sold me. All I had to do was the coaching.
Right.
And that was brilliant. And so that's where it started. And I was then given an opportunity of becoming part of a coaching team for something like 6 or 7 years, where a large Australian company, the coaching occurred in America. So I was spending a lot of time traveling over there as one of the 4 coaches. And that was an extraordinary opportunity. And I found myself for the first time in my life in a place that I was comfortable, that challenged me, and that I seemed to be reasonably good at it.
Right.
So that's where it is.
And that gave you the confidence to be able to sell yourself better?
No, still
Still not good.
It's still absolutely hopeless. So I'm just hoping that the podcast will save it all.
Right. Well, very well might. Let's talk a little bit about leadership. So Tacitus said, reason and calm judgment, the qualities especially belonging to a leader.
Yes.
Is that correct? Or was Tacitus having a bit of a lazy day at work? There should be a lot more on that list, do you think?
It's a very, very good description of leadership in times of abundance, in times of quiet seclusion. I can imagine that would describe leadership in a watchmaking factory.
Right.
It doesn't describe leadership in highly competitive industries, industries that are being attacked by complexity, both of the product, but generally of the economics and the commercialism around it. It's great, except it doesn't take it far enough. Today, being the leader in a commercial world takes a lot more. There is a level of complexity. In his world, the intellectual dominance would be with the CEO. In today's world, the intellectual dominance is not with the CEO, or it shouldn't be with the CEO. It should be a purchased quality of the people who report into CEOs.
How much, again, this might be too broad a question, but how much of being a good leader is circumstantial in terms of your upbringing or the path you've found yourself on, or is it instinctive?
I think some of it's instinctive, but instinct comes from history.
Mm.
So I think people who have had a challenging life have had to overcome some kind of series of challenges, emotional, intellectual, whatever, physical, can make good leaders because it gives them a history. It gives them an ability to rely on themselves. I think a lot has to do with relying on yourself and your own judgment. You need to have that. CEOs who don't have that and are put into CEO roles are the ones that look like they're in the deep end of a pool without swimming lessons. I think you've got to be able to have that confidence. Too much of that confidence leads to danger.
Right.
But sometimes you have to have a lot of that confidence to lead through, even though people are saying this is the wrong track, you may still get the organisation to the other side.
Yeah.
So when I started off on coaching, people would say, could anyone be a leader? And I used to say, yes. I was fundamentally wrong. I think not everyone can be a leader. And I think we're learning and we're seeing more and more that fewer and fewer people should have leadership roles. They should
Thinking
be.
about anyone in particular there?
No, but I'm thinking that if you started reading the AFR, you could identify 10 people within about 5 minutes,
right,
that perhaps shouldn't have leadership roles.
I was thinking of some overseas leaders potentially. But...
Yes, I mean, I think people who are wanting to be the position rather than the function. I need to be a CEO. I want to retire having been a CEO are the wrong people because they want the title, not the function.
Right.
I want to retire having led a large number of people through the mountains. I want to be the Marco Polo, to have gotten onto the other side and found what China looks like, sort of thing. They're the people who understand they can diversify their qualities across a group of people who can do all the stuff they need. People want to be influenced by them.
You said in the leadership episode that leadership should be an invisible drum leading the march, but people have stopped listening. That sounds like there's a fair bit of responsibility on the team as well as the leader to be doing the listening. Is that fair? Or is it always the leader's responsibility to make everyone listen in some way, whether it's through behavior or culture or even action?
Oh, look, I think it's a balanced thing. But if I'm coaching a senior executive who's moving into another role, reporting into a CEO, I will counsel them to have a good hard look at the CEO. What's the CEO like? What's the reputation? Is this someone you're willing to work for and be led by? And is this someone that you will follow even though you think they're wrong? So that's the first thing.
Right.
But I think there is a need for CEOs to take into account the qualities of their direct reports
Right.
and the characteristics of their. A lot of programs are created for CEOs to coach their leadership team. I think that's fundamentally wrong. I think the CEOs need to be able to develop a one-on-one relationship with each of their direct reports, who are normally subject matter experts, before they start treating them as a team. And in many respects, you don't need to teach them as a team. These people are clever. They don't need to be described as a team. If you put them all in a room and say, "Look, I don't care how you do it. I don't care if you blow yourselves all up, but I want you to develop a strategy to get us from here to here. You're the most intelligent people in the company. Would you mind doing it?" The CEO is going to go and play golf. The CEO doesn't have to be there. The CEO, I mean, the people say, there's pressures of a CEO. Mostly a CEO needs to make 5 decisions a year, but they're really difficult decisions. If they've got to make any more, the structure's wrong.
Yeah. And they're always career defining kind of
Yeah,
decisions,
they should be able to say, give this back to the team. I don't know. What do you think?
Lastly today, you've been coaching leaders for 30 years. Have you seen a lot of difference in, I guess, the personal qualities of the executive class over that 30 years? Is there a trend over time, or?
Look, I think there is a trend for executives to speak more broadly about the elements of leadership. They speak it, they don't behave it. So they've read 3/4 of a book they bought in an airport bookshop, and so they know 5 ways to become a leader or 7 ways not to be a leader, all of those sorts of things. So there's a language, but there's no belief under the language. There's no behavioural change. There's no self-realisation, self-awareness underneath all of that. So you've got this language change on the top, which sounds fantastic, but there's no change underneath. So that's the first thing. The second thing that I've seen is we're using the idea of complexity as an excuse for mediocre thinking. This is a really complex situation. Well, we're the most intelligent people on this planet. This situation was built by this planet. Go back into the room and figure it out, guys. But we use it as a really complex, and everyone goes, "Oh, well, it's terrible, poor person." No. Go fix it. We don't fix things. The other thing is that we're avoiding more and more and more deep thinking. We are looking for a technical solution to bang on the table, right? And, well, that's fine. We don't need to take it any further. Whereas there is a complex set of solutions underneath. What are the connections between that? And the final thing is, one of the things that close to my heart is that we are moving more and more away from the base element of truth, of looking for truth. We are confusing truth and aspiration,
Right.
particularly in the way we sell comfort zones to our people.
Well, I think we're going to talk about truth and deep thinking and so on in some upcoming episodes. There's a fair bit to explore there. So thank you for letting me come and grill you today.
Oh, it's been great. It's good to be able to talk about these things.
Yeah.
And it's good to be able to see your thinking as well. So it's great.
If you like this podcast, make sure you tell people about it. And if executive coaching is something that sounds like it could benefit you,
I'm here.
Go to Peter's website, tolead.com.au.